So who has applied to EAVE, ACE, any Eric Palmer? We have 1, 2, oh, more hands. So I think you should all go and speak to the people that run those courses, because when we sent out a kind of call that you know, we were doing this event and we kind of wanted more information about what they were doing, they were all very interested in the cohort and very keen to see kind of what you were up to. So yeah, I would, if anything comes out of this, I would suggest reaching out to them. Yeah, basically we fund, the Creative Europe programme funds about 60 different training courses and initiatives. They're there to kind of put you in touch with your peers around Europe and the rest of the world. They do have a more international reach than just Europe. Basically, co-production is really the backbone of what the Creative Europe programme's all about. It's becoming even more so with, we're coming to the end of the current programme, about to go into a new programme that will run for another 7 years. And they're really driving home the idea that cross-border collaboration and sort of bringing people together to work on projects is the way forward. And so you'll see a lot more kind of emphasis on that throughout the initiatives that are supported in the coming years. So the training element really works. So the first thing I wanted to touch on, there's different training courses that are supported, allowing you to sort of expand on your networks, meet potential co-production partners and develop your projects within the international market in mind. So EAVE's been training people for over 30 years now, so they pretty much know what they're doing. The course consists of 3 intensive weeks over the course of a year, but there's also kind of additional time built into that year where you're kind of doing online learning and tutoring. I think they receive about 200 applications a year, and from that they pick 550 participants, divided into 4 groups, and about 2/3 of the workshops of each workshop is that group work. So you are really kind of working together in the smaller groups. Producers can bring their writers to the first 2 sessions, and then this image is actually from the 3rd session, which looks a lot like a co-production market, but is actually a bit more of a relaxed affair, I guess, because the kind of 70 or so decision makers that are coming know that they are not there to be, you know, they're not there to make deals, so they're kind of a little bit more open, a little bit more relaxed. The conversations, the meetings are about 45 minutes, I think, so you know, it's a more relaxed environment to get to know these people and to kind of talk about your projects in more detail. ACE is the other sort of big flagship program that Creative Europe supports. It's kind of seen as a natural progression from EAVE, so it tends to be targeted at more experienced producers. On average, the participants that take part in that have around 3 feature films to their name. And again, it's all about that sharing of knowledge and experience in order to facilitate more co-production. So creating that environment of trust, I think, is really important, so that you know that within your kind of cohort and the wider network, that there's someone that you can go to kind of give you the lowdown on what's happening in Germany or what's happening in France, or you know, wherever you're looking to kind of work with a new country, and offering guidance on your projects as well. So like EAVE, there's 3 workshops throughout the year, each in a different European city. The first concentrates on content development, the second on financing strategies, and the third on business prospects and company development. And then there's also an annual reunion that you take part in, which I think next year is going to be in Edinburgh for the first time. So there's lots of activity going to be happening around that in April next year. The main difference between ACE and EAVE is, well, the cohort is smaller to begin with. It's about 18 people that take part in ACE. You do need to apply with a project, whereas with EAVE you have the kind of choice between applying with a project or without. That project has to have the potential for co-production and has to be in the early stages of development, so either kind of early draft script or the treatment stage generally.
You have to see that sort of, right, if you apply with a project, you have to stick with it, or can you change it as you go through?
Well, of course you can change it, yeah. it's for your learning, but
Yeah.
you will probably change it actually
Yeah.
as a consequence.
Yeah. ACE does only focus on fiction as well, whereas EAVE will look at documentary. And then the other main difference is that ACE is only for producers, so it's not that you're bringing your writer with you. It's not that there's other kind of film professionals in the room, it's just the producers that are part of the cohort. The other kind of main flagship one I wanted to mention was Eric Pommer. So these people are all having a lovely time at the European Co-Production Legal and Financial Aspects Workshop, which is run by Eric Pommer in Spain. The workshop follows a very similar kind of format to this one that we're in right now, but it's much more in depth. So rather than in a weekend, you're kind of looking over the course of a week at financing, co-production agreements, you know, the kind of legal and financial aspects really of what you're putting together. There's, unlike EAVE and ACE, there's no application procedure for this one. So those of you that will have been through the application for those, you know, it's quite involved. You'll have the kind of pre-selection interviews. For this, it's just a kind of first come, first served, on a first come, first served basis. So I think if you ask anybody that's kind of gone through these programs, and you'll hear from, I think, all three of the producers tomorrow that are taking you through the group work and doing the kind of myth-busting panel. All three have been through these programs. They'll tell you it's about the network. That's really the benefit, and that carries on long after the workshop has finished. It's from these sessions and these working in groups that these lifelong connections get made. And we see a lot of projects, co-productions coming from those cohorts. So I think at an event we did recently with Satu from EAVE, she said that their tracking had shown that 50% of the people that graduated from EAVE are co-producing with other graduates from EAVE. So it really does kind of build that network that allows you to get these projects kind of off the ground. And they're also really, I mean, funding rules are always constantly changing. You know, there's no way that we kind of assigned you each a country, but like to keep on track of all of that is impossible. So it's really good to have those connections in those other countries that can help you out. I'll touch quickly on markets. So again, there's about 60 or so different pitching forums, co-production markets, industry initiatives that we fund. Just picking out three. One would be Cinemart in Rotterdam. I can go into a bit more detail, but it's basically you need to have between 10 and 40% of your financing in place. They're looking for very strongly director-driven projects, feature-length fiction or creative documentaries. I mean, just using their kind of words, it's that they're looking for projects that have a certain urgency or freshness. New talent and established voices are both welcome, but for new talents there should be some previous work, so either a short or a feature-length project available. I'm going to run through this because we're skipping a little bit of time just to get things going. But yeah, there's also the Berlinale co-production market, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Registered around 600 experienced producers and financiers active in the international co-production business. And then each year it selects 35 feature film projects, as well as 8 series projects, 12 novels available for adaptation, and 5 outstanding production companies that have a particular interesting profile. So it's all about kind of building, raising the profile of those companies, and again, creating that environment for people to meet and pitch their projects. I'm sure you're familiar with all of them, so I won't go on too long. There's also MIA in Rome. Again, it's the same concept. It's creating that space for you to go and meet these people from other countries. When I kind of put a call out to all of these courses just to say, tell me a little bit about your course and you know, what would you want us to pass on to you guys? They were all really keen to say that, you know, it's not a closed shop. Like, come and meet them at the festivals, meet them at the markets. They're there to kind of talk you through whether you're at the right stage to be applying, or you know, they're humans basically, and they want to engage with you and with your project. There's people reading these applications, and they want to get a sense that you're at the right stage and you're at the right time to put in the application before you go ahead with it. And another good tip that someone came up with actually was to kind of ask someone from another country to look at your application and your project before it goes in, just to get that outsider perspective and see how it might play with someone who's not in your country or region can be useful. So I'll just touch a little bit on Creative Europe funding. Who has put in an application for Creative Europe development funding? Lovely. Who's been successful?
Doesn't always work first time, don't worry.
Often it's second, third, fourth time. Agnieszka said we don't have a specific fund for co-productions, but I would suggest that maybe we do.
It's not a phase of production, it's early.
It's early, it's development, but this is our single project development scheme, and basically the most recent results, 97% of the projects selected were intended as international co-productions. The other 3% are national co-productions. So it really is about, they're the kind of projects we're now looking to support. It's not necessarily explicit in the guidelines or the eligibility criteria. It comes to how points are awarded within the application form. But 100%, if you're looking to submit a project, it should be with that co-production potential in mind. I did want to show you another slide which would compare the single project results to our SLATE funding scheme. So we have two schemes for developers for development. One is single project, the other is SLATE, where you can apply for 3 to 5 projects at the same time. That scheme is more weighted towards the kind of profile of the company and the position of the company on the international market. So whereas single project, it's all on the project itself. The weighting of the points goes on the quality of the writing, the story, the characters, who you've got attached. For SLATE, it's a little bit different. So I was hoping to show you, I've just got X's because Brussels didn't give me the starting time. But yeah, I would assume that the percentage would be slightly lower, so it wouldn't be as many co-productions getting selected for SLATE. A lot of that is to do with the fact that often the projects are coming in at a little bit of an earlier stage, but also because it is about the company rather than the project where the points go.
And what is the level of the development finance that you're offering?
So the SLATE fund, you can apply for between 100, not 10. Yeah, between 100 and 210,000 euros, sorry.
And that's for 3 to 5 projects?
3 to 5 projects. For a single project, it depends on the type of project that you're applying with. So it would be 25,000 for a documentary, 60,000 for an animation, or either 30 or 50,000 for a fiction project, and that depends on your overall production budget. So if it's under 1.5, you apply for 30, and if it's over 1.5, you apply for 50. What we have done and what's in all of your kind of little packs and bags is there's one brochure in there that's probably the most useful. Is we've taken all of the kind of producer guidelines and condensed them down to about 4 pages. So it gives you those like bullet points of what you need to have and what's available for each of those schemes. There is also a TV programming scheme, which is the third scheme that we have available for producers. That covers fiction, fiction, documentary and animation. It's all about kind of putting together your financing plan through pre-sales to broadcasters, so it might not necessarily be relevant to everyone in the room, but again, it's about co-production, so the 80% of the projects that we support in that are submitted as international co-productions.
And is that, sorry to ask, is that funding reputable, or is that?
Nope, they're non-repayable grants. So there are also 5 co-production funds that Creative Europe supports to enable them to kind of increase their activities, and they're all focused on Europe co-producing outside of itself. So European producers working with other producers in Africa, India, South America, and there's some really brilliant films that are coming out of some of these funds. I think there's been about 100 or so supported since 2014. They support production, but there's also kind of some elements that support distribution as well. Projects like Birds of Passage, which was Colombian, Danish, Mexican co-production, supported through Torino Film Lab's Audience Design Fund, so that was the kind of distribution end of things. And again, like we're seeing these kind of trails where the producers of this film were all part of the ACE Producers Network. They each took part in an EAVE training course. They both pitched the film at Cinema and the Berlinale co-production market. So you can kind of see how, you know, these initiatives that Creative Europe's supporting is kind of taking you through each journey and each step of the journey of the film. So there's 5 of them. There's Torino Film Lab, Edo Cinema du Monde, Rafiki supported through that.
Is that CNC?
It is through the CNC, yeah, but they basically, what the Creative Europe funding's allowed each of these to do is open it up to more European, wider European participants and producers. So it's yeah, they're kind of taken what they were doing existingly and kind of expanded it in a lot of cases.
So you mean by that it doesn't necessarily have to be led by a French producer
exactly.
anymore?
Exactly, yeah. There's also the Berlinale World Cinema Fund Europe, so they have their own World Cinema Fund, but then the Creative Europe part is World Cinema Fund Europe. Id for Bertha Fund Europe, they've all got the kind of Europe in the end, and the Hubert Balls Fund Europe. And yeah, some really beautiful projects coming out of that, and really important, I think, to have those connections, not just be kind of co-producing within our own borders, but kind of looking into developing markets and interesting stories from elsewhere. I think that's where I'm going to end. It was just wanted to give a very brief overview. I've just thrown up some pictures of some lovely supported co-productions that have been receiving money through media and have all gone on to win awards. There's lots of stats that we haven't really gone into about how co-production allows your film to travel better. It allows to, you know, it actually generates more admissions for films, and surprisingly, goes on to a lot of the films that are winning awards are co-productions. I think there's about 70% of the Audiovisual Observatory in Europe did a kind of analysis of all the films winning awards at the kind of key festivals and national awards, things like BAFTA. And yeah, 70% of them were co-produced films, which is quite nice.
I think we just to sum up a little bit that it is all about who you know, right? You have to co-produce with people you know, and at the beginning of that journey, maybe that might be a bit daunting. Like, how do I get to know my potential co-producers? You're not alone in this, because there's this. What Francesca was talking about is this kind of environment being kind of pre-prepared for you to join that group, to join that course, to go to this less daunting, more kind of bijou type co-production forum than go into Cannes and start waving your scripted strangers, right? You go into those pre-packaged smaller events where you get to know each other better, and you will hear from people who come tomorrow that they've done their rounds. It take maybe 2-3 years to go to this course, to go to this forum, to go there, but you will then discover this is quite a finite universe with just a number of people, and you all know each other. You just have to go through that journey, and we can help with that. That's where the program integrates.
And I would say, I mean, there are obviously very competitive schemes and initiatives to get on. It's not like everybody gets a place, but there is also that if you are looking for, that would be my first port of call. If I was looking for a co-production partner in a specific country, go on the ACE website, go on the EAVE website. They've got all their past participants listed on there, and they know what's. Well, they've been through it. Use them as your kind of tool if you can't get into that course yourself.